Welcome to FuelCast, your go-to space for inspiring, engaging, and uplifting conversations, connecting those who want to make a difference in the lives of our children and communities. Together, we're fueling Georgia's future, one conversation at a time. It's now time for FuelCast Georgia.
Welcome to another exciting episode of FuelCast. I am Rolandria Boyce.
And I'm Anna Coleman, and we are so excited to be back in studio for another episode of FuelCast, where we have two very dynamic guests here to talk about something that is truly at the heart of the Georgia Department of Education School Nutrition Division, and that is food-based learning. So we are so excited to talk with Kelley Toon, Academic Nutrition Manager of the Georgia Department of Education School Nutrition Division team, and Bridgette Matthews, who is the School Nutrition Director in Elbert County, Georgia. All right, so Bridgette and Kelley, welcome to FuelCast. We're super excited y'all are here to talk about all things food-based learning.
Glad to be here. Thanks for asking.
So before we jump into that, we do like to start each conversation with a chance for listeners to get to know you both a little bit better, know how you got to the place that you're in now. So can you both tell us a little bit about where did you grow up and how did that influence the person that you are today? So Bridgette, we can kick it off with you.
Okay, cool. My name is Bridgette Matthews. I'm School Nutrition Director in Elbert County School, and I grew up in Elberton, so this is home for me. I started out, thought I would always do clinical dietetics, and my very first rotation was school nutrition, and I spent 4 weeks with Richmond County School Nutrition. My internship was in Augusta, and I fell in love with it and never left. And so I've come back home, School Nutrition Director at home. Elberton is a very small town. We just have 5 schools, about 3,000 students. Everybody knows everybody. It's the beauty of the small town. Everybody looks after everybody. And you know, the funny story I always tell my managers, when I was hired as the School Nutrition Director, the manager of the middle school at that time was the manager of the middle school when I came through Elbert County Middle School. So it's a small town. It's an honor to serve my family and my friends that are still in town, and it's no place like home. My children are there, and I really enjoy serving in that capacity.
That's amazing. You know, we always say, like, once you get into school nutrition, people really don't leave. They find out how awesome it is.
That's true.
And so to get to go back to your community, and we're going to talk a lot about community involvement today, so I think that ties in perfectly.
It's so true.
So Kelley, what about you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Pennsylvania, and yes, I do still miss the cold winters. I do miss that weather, winter weather, but I grew up in a smaller town as well, and actually my mom was a teacher at the school that I went to, and some aunts and uncles are teachers there too. So really education and school community was always really important to me growing up. I also have a very large extended family, so family gatherings were a very big deal as well, always getting together, and food was around that. So when I think about the opportunity to work in education and with food, it's just a natural fit for me.
That's awesome. I hear you both have like that really community passion combined with the nutrition passion. It's like no wonder you ended up where you are. So Kelley, you are the Academic Nutrition Manager at the Georgia Department of Education. What does that mean, and what does an average day look like for you?
Sure, yeah, and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, so of course I have that nutrition focus, but really with food-based learning and academic nutrition, I have the opportunity to also work with farm to school and our farm to school team and the wellness team and wellness specialist and then our culinary team, and then really the opportunity to focus on those areas and how they could support students in our communities.
Fantastic. And we're talking about food-based learning. It's something that a lot of people might be doing and not even realize. So for someone who may not be aware, what is food-based learning?
Sure, yeah. Food-based learning is really our opportunity to engage with food. So when we think about some of those connections that happen in the school, so using food as a tool to engage in the classroom. So really, food is something that we could utilize in cross-curricular areas to have that engagement opportunities and to really make those connections and have those hands-on learning opportunities.
Wonderful. So Bridgette, that leads us perfectly to my next question. I've heard that Elbert County has a really strong commitment to food-based learning coming from their teachers and the school nutrition program. So what kind of food-based learning activities do you do with students in Elbert County?
Yeah, so we started several years ago. Our teachers all participate in what we call professional learning teams. And so those professional learning teams, we affectionately call them PLTs. those teachers meet together once a week and they're planning 2 weeks out, what am I teaching? Which standard? How am I going to cover that? So I asked when those first started, could I be a part of those PLTs? Could I sit in there? Could I listen to what those teachers were teaching? And so I started listening to them, and that first year we started really small. So kindergarten, they have curriculum maps, and that curriculum map they were working on was the tops and bottoms standard. And so I would come in and we would do carrots, and we would do tomatoes, and we would do a top and a bottom, and we would work with those teachers. And so our idea is that professional learning teams really are about taking the standard and allowing that teacher to teach that standard, and then I come in at the end and I provide food-based learning and we make that standard come alive. So for instance, that year, that very first year, we started small with tops and bottoms, and then my fourth graders were learning about light. So they were doing translucent, transparent, and opaque. And I said, okay, so you teach the standard, and on Friday, let me come in with milk, which is opaque, and lemonade, which is translucent, and then water with transparent. And so we came in with flashlights and we were using that. And while we were in there, we started talking about not only the science part of that and what that looked like, but the nutrition part of it, and which one of these foods was most nutritionally sound for them. And if milk indeed was the most nutritionally sound, why do we serve milk in school lunch every day?
Wow.
So the key is to take that standard, bring in something fun. The kids are so excited when they see my cart coming down the hall because they know somebody is getting food-based learning. They don't call it that. They don't know it's food-based learning, but somebody is going to get something fun to do. So we take that standard and then allow the teacher to teach it in the best way that she can, and they do a phenomenal job. But then we come in and support that classroom with the food-based learning, and we take that standard and make it come alive.
That is so cool to hear about.
So exciting.
I mean, I'm sure it's fun for you too to get to work with the students, but thinking about, like, you're already bringing those lessons alive. We like to say that you can connect nutrition to any part of the academic school day, but also getting to teach them about nutrition through those lessons, and they don't even know that you're doing it.
That's
it's like
correct.
You're sliding
Yes.
it in.
Yes.
So what
It is also the connection back to the cafeteria. So for our students, it's the familiarity with me and with my staff as we come in and we work with them, and when they're familiar with us, and then they come through the serving line and they see us, and it's the connection between those foods that we're showing them and why we serve them and why they're important, and then to watch them grab those foods as they come through the line. That's the big deal for us.
Absolutely, it's a big deal. Have you noticed students being more willing to try new things since you've started doing this?
Oh, absolutely, and especially in the classroom when we're working with them, and they might be strange things. So we taught this past year a lesson on microorganisms with our fifth graders, and we took milk and we used vinegar as the science part of it, as the bacteria to make cheese, and we allowed them to make that cheese and then have them, taste test it. Not everybody liked it, but when it's a part of that lesson and all of your peers are doing that, everybody tries, and it's so cool to watch them be excited about that and to try all of those new things.
It's like that positive peer pressure.
It is.
Good
It
peer
really
pressure.
is.
It's very impressive.
So what advice would you have for other school nutrition directors or teachers who are hearing this and they want to maybe start small, but they want to foster that kind of food-based learning culture in their district? How would you recommend they get started?
I think the first part is to start small. I told you I started with tops and bottoms, and that's a relatively easy place, easy one to do that you can get in and that you can teach that. And so figuring out how you can be a part of that. So as a school nutrition director, we're sometimes seen as we're school nutrition and we're in this box. But if you can begin to change that culture where all of a sudden school nutrition is now just not in a box in that cafeteria, we're an integral part of that education process. And so your teachers are doing some kind of planning, whether it's an official, professional learning team, as we call them in Elbert, our PLTs, whether it's an official PLT or whether it's just common planning among teachers, they're doing planning at some point. Figure out what that looks like and ask to be a part of that. Listen to what they're teaching and then bring your ideas. How can how can I support what you're doing, because it's a win-win for teachers, because not only have they taught it and then we come into support, we pay for it, we plan for it, we do it. All they have to do is just sit back and allow us into their classroom. And so that's been the beauty of it for us. But I think that the biggest deal is to start small and to figure out how that you can be a part of that planning so that you can come in with your creative ideas.
And that's a great example too of that collaboration that
Yes.
you can have to support students. So Kelley, you mentioned when you were introducing yourself that you work not just with food-based learning, but with our culinary specialist, farm to school specialist. So how is food-based learning related to farm to school?
Yeah, absolutely. So Farm to School is really an opportunity to help integrate into existing lessons. So when we think about the opportunity to connect to what's happening in the classroom, we're able to engage. And we have a program called the Harvest of the Month program, where a different item is featured each month. And that's something that could be grown and harvested locally and then served in the cafeteria. So really that's kind of like a map. It helps you map out throughout the school year and throughout the year ways to integrate some of these food-based learning opportunities into the classroom and into the cafeteria.
Wonderful. And so recently, Superintendent Woods, our Georgia State School Superintendent, released the Student Bill of Rights. And in there he says that Georgia students have the right to Georgia-grown school meals along with Georgia-grown academic standards. So what role do farm to school and food-based learning play in achieving those goals for Georgia's students?
Sure, absolutely. We really want to be able to support procuring local foods and then preparing them, thinking about that culinary aspect, making sure that it's hitting those tastes and flavors that our students love, and then also thinking about including those as part of Georgia standards and then also integrating them into lessons as well.
Wonderful. So Bridgette, some people might think that food-based learning we're talking about only takes place in a classroom setting, but there's actually a lot of learning that goes on in the school cafeteria each day. So can you share some lessons that students learn just by participating in school meals in the cafeteria?
Sure. I think the direct link between what we do with food-based learning in the classroom really just extrapolates those kids, and as they come through the line, to watch them as we've talked about those things in the classroom is to really see when they come through the line and they're making choices, because we're offer versus serve, but to watch them as they transition into that serving line, and to watch them choose more fruits and vegetables, as we've talked about that, as we've done a lesson on My Plate and we've looked at that, and then all of a sudden we're coming through the serving line and we're choosing our fruits and our vegetables in just excess. To watch them do that, it's really, really fascinating. I was teaching in our middle school level, so we had 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls. We have extended learning time, so I was part of that ELT to come in and teach just really great nutrition for early teens is what they had asked for. And so I started on Monday and I taught all the way through the week. And so I started the lesson with, hey, tell me what you ate yesterday. And so we have a sheet of paper and everybody starts writing down what you ate yesterday. I normally don't teach food-based learning on Mondays because I usually need Mondays to prepare for the classes in the rest of the week. But the way the schedule worked, I had to start on that Monday. And so it hit me as we are taking what did I eat yesterday and we're plugging that into the My Plate. They were missing milk. They were missing fruits. They were missing vegetables. And so as we started kind of talking about that with our students, what would this look like if we had done what did you eat yesterday on a Tuesday or a Wednesday when you actually ate a school lunch or a school meal? And they all were like, oh, well, I would have had fruits and I would have had milk, and it just hits like that's the connection. That's the biggest piece for me, is to just watch them take what we're teaching in that classroom. How does that correlate in, and let them see as they come through the line and they're actually choosing.
And really we're getting to model, as part of the school meals program, the healthy habits at home. So thinking about those opportunities on the weekend when they're building those consistent habits and healthy habits throughout the week, they're then able to apply them on the weekends as well. So making those connections there, practicing it during the school day.
And seeing, like, it's not just that I go eat lunch in the cafeteria every day. I'm learning how to eat for the rest of my life.
That is correct.
You know, maybe they'll be in college at their dining hall and they'll think, well, Miss Matthews told me that I needed to have all of my components. You know, those are the things that will stick with them.
I was in we only have, so we're small. Remember I told you we're small. We have like one grocery store. And so I was in there this past week, and there was a teenager cashier checking me out. It was late at night. There was very few people around. And she said, "You look so familiar." And I said, "Well," I said, "I can tell you, I've either taught in your classroom or you've seen me in the cafeterias." And she goes, "That's it, that's it. I remember when I was little, you used to tell me that milk is good for my teeth, and she did this, and good for my arms and my bones." And I was like, this is it. This is what happens, is so that she will never forget that, right? She will never forget those, and that's why we do what we do, is to change healthy and to create healthy eating habits for them for their lifetime.
That is amazing. That's just the power of the impact that you can have on those students. And so you're also participating this school year in the Culinary Innovation Program, which is a program that is facilitated by us at the Georgia Department of Education, where our culinary specialists go into schools that are already doing a great job and are really wanting to step up to the next level of some really impressive culinary skills in their school nutrition programs. You're working with our culinary specialist, Chef John Huff, to learn some of those new skills. And so I heard that you had an interesting activity that you did with some students related to that. Can you tell us?
So we did. Elbert Middle is one of the culinary innovation schools this year, and we are partnering with Chef John Huff. And when the chef came in, we really wanted, we're so like community-based in our system, and we wanted it to be a collaboration, not just between the culinary specialist and my staff to improve what we were doing, but really with the whole school. And so one of our ELT classes there at the middle school is our leadership team. So they are like your student leadership, your you know, in the old days you had those leadership committees. That is what they are teaching these kids. And so I just asked the leadership teacher, I was like, "Would you be willing to partner with us?" And she said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Why don't you bring the kids down this morning, come into the cafeteria when Chef is here, and let's just kind of show what is happening." And so we did that. We brought them in, and they were able to kind of stand back but watch as he worked with my staff to get ready for that day. And what we were changing the spice blend that we were putting on pizzas, and the spice blend, and how we were cooking our hamburgers differently. And we weren't wrapping them, we were making them eye appealing on the line, and they were watching all of this happen. And I was so disappointed, y'all, because the kids were so quiet. And Chef Huff turns around and he takes like all of his spice blends, and he starts giving this really great like whole lesson on what he's doing and why he's doing it. And they hardly said a word. And I was like, nobody, and these are middle schoolers, I'm like, nobody has a question. And they kept just staring and watching, and we were trying to pull it out of them. And I was like, you know what, it's okay, it's all right. We've exposed them, they kind of know. I said to them before they left, "Guys, here's what I want you to get out of this, is I want you to see we are trying to do everything we can to elevate our school meals. We want you to eat with us. We want you to be excited when you come through the cafeteria. I want you to know there's a chef, a real live chef back here who is teaching my staff how to elevate your meals." And I said, "When you come out of here, you need to tell your friends. Did y'all know that there was a chef in the cafeteria today? Like, I want you to like make sure everybody knows, like, hey, we've got this really cool like guest back there, and we are really working to kind of bring the level of our meals up." And so they were still just real quiet, just kind of staring at me. And they walk out of the cafeteria, and I could see them through the dish machine as they're going out, and they're all just like talking. And so they get to the classroom, and so of course I'm still in the school later in the day, and the teacher comes back to me, and she kind of motions for me, and she goes, "I have to tell you something." And I said, "Okay." She said, "I couldn't get them to shut up. When they got in the classroom, they were all talking. They couldn't believe it. Did you see what the chef was doing? Our hamburgers are going to look like this. Our pizza's now going to look like this. Hey, what if we did some posters to advertise school lunch? What if we did that?" And it just like I knew they were quiet, but I didn't realize how much they were absorbing and taking in all of that. And so all of a sudden, they have now become my champions in that school, and they have really made it popular and really talked about it. And so after Chef John leaves, and that's part of that culinary innovation program, is to really, what's the next step, right? He was there, made some really great changes, kind of changed the mindset of my staff. But then what is the next step? What comes out of that? And so I went back to that same classroom a few days later, and I said, "Okay, guys, here's what I need. There are 300 plus recipes on the culinary website, on the culinary resources part of our website. There are 300 plus recipes. I have picked out what I think we want to try next, right? Like these are kind of the next things that we want to try. I was like, but it doesn't really matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what you think. So what I want you to do is I want you to take these resources, all 300 of these recipes. I want you to go through them. And Miss Rogers, our teachers there, was like, we got it. We'll let you know when we're ready. And so in a few days, she emailed me and she was like, can you be here on such and such a day? Absolutely. So I go in and the classroom is split up into 4 teams, and each of those teams were made to stand as part of their leadership, right? But each of those teams were made to stand and present. And not only did they pick out their favorite recipes, they had created a menu. So they had an entree picked from those culinary resource recipes. So they had an entree, they had a dessert, and they had a breakfast item. And here's what our team wants, and here's why we want it. So we went around the room, and it was very similar. Each of the 4 teams kind of have picked some of the same things, and we began to have discussions about what that looks like. And so even, like Chef John and I are continuing to talk about this, there was a recipe, because all of the recipes have pictures, and there was a recipe for a French toast crunch. And the picture, and the kids said, we think that sounds good when we look at the recipe, but we're not sure about the way that looks. And I said, well, you know what? What if we taste test it? Let us make it. And so we have that planned in the next couple of weeks, and Chef John's going to come out with us when we do that. So just today, on my way in here, I have gotten like 4,000 emails because we did a parfait this morning for breakfast that came from there. It was the first time we had done that this morning for breakfast, and it was wildly popular, and they can't stop talking about it. And so it's a great place. And I'll be honest, I've been doing this job for a really, really long time, and culinary was out there, but culinary was not my focus. And I felt like I have a million other things to do all day long. I can't even, our participation is great. My managers, my staff, everybody works so well together, like it's just not a priority for me. And I completely changed that mindset and decided back in the spring to apply for a culinary innovation school. And I can't tell you how excited we are to be a part of that. And I'm really sorry that I haven't done it before now. Because what we did when Chef John came in to the one school, because we just pick one school in your district, Chef John was there. We had a managers meeting the next week, and we had that staff come and present at the managers meeting, how do we take what we learned and spread it throughout our county. And so it's really been just an extraordinary decision to be a part of that. And so I just encourage any of the districts out there, if you get the opportunity to apply, do it, because you won't be sorry that you've been a part of that.
Wow.
I love how you engaged with the students too and gave them and empowered them to make the choices and to have the opportunity to build those menus. I think it was really exciting to be able to hear and see what some of those choices were that they made as well. Yeah. And it sounds like there was an interest in breakfast. I really love that.
Yeah. So that's the most exciting part. Breakfast is always a struggle for us, and so it's crazy. So I'm very anxious to get home this afternoon and see what the participation numbers were like this morning at the middle school.
Yeah, and it's always fun to taste something too. So I like that opportunity to taste and try. And it gives you that opportunity to do writing with the students as well. So incorporating some of those food literacy terms and vocabulary and language. So many opportunities with that.
Absolutely.
Wow. I mean, that's an example of, we could almost pack it up right here. That's an example of so many amazing things with food-based learning, again, where the students aren't really knowing that that's what they're doing, but they have learned so much from that experience about, where their food comes from, how it's prepared, the care that your staff is taking in preparing it, looking at those recipes.
It's also given them a voice, and that's huge for me, is for my students to know that I have a voice, and that when I can give you my opinion and I can give it in the right way, then we make those changes. And so that's always my thing, is that if you give them a voice, make the change. If they're asking you to do something, do it. And so now that my students know that they have a voice, we can tell you, we can do that. They know we're listening, and we know that we have them in mind, that all of our decisions are made and our students come first. And so that's been huge for us, is to make sure they knew they had that voice.
And if you're going to put in the effort with your team of making all these culinary shifts, you want the students to know about it. And you want them to be excited about it and to come in and actually eat the food that you're preparing. So what better way to promote it too than that positive kind of peer pressure we were talking about earlier of hey, you want to try this? I heard they're going to have this recipe I picked out, or even the competition between the teams. It makes it so exciting, and it's centered around that nutrition education. It's just amazing.
It is.
So I heard you also have something called Nutrition for Champions in Elbert County. Y'all are doing all of the amazing things over there, where you relate nutrition to student athletes and athletics. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So we had a new football coach come in about 4 years ago, and he came from a larger district somewhere else in the state, and he said to me, how can we partner together? And he and I began to sit down and talk about what does that look like for our athletes? What does it look like to make sure that they understand that garbage in is garbage out, and that if you want to be a champion, if you want to win, if you want to excel in your sport on the field or on the court, not just practice gets you there, that a lot of things go into that. So we're moving from our football team, because that's where it started.
Very cool. I love how you incorporated the small attainable goals too. So thinking about that goal setting as part of it and broke it down.
Yes, big deal.
And you're really like, I don't know if you even realize how incredible some of the things you're saying are, but it's really, they're thinking about winning, because obviously, they're a high school athlete, they want to win, but what you're really doing is preparing them for life. And these are lessons that will be applicable to them for the rest of their lives, regardless of their athletic pursuits. And it's just, fabulous to hear about.
It's exciting. It's exciting to be a part of that.
So Kelley, I'm sure if people are hearing this, they're hearing Bridgette, they're fired up, I would be. They want to get started with food-based learning and those kind of nutrition education lessons in their school district. What resources do we have that exist that can help them get started on their plan?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're a fan of all of the things that's happening in Elbert County and really excited. And I think there's a variety of ways that we could implement food-based learning. And sometimes it's happening with school nutrition professionals in the cafeteria by serving those locally grown items and the variety of food and thinking about the promotions associated with it. And sometimes it's a teacher approaching school nutrition and thinking about, can we serve something like this so that it could really complement the lessons that we're teaching in the classroom. So there's a variety of ways that we can get started with food-based learning and have it incorporated into the cafeteria and the classroom. And so thinking about that, we have some resources that could help support that as well. So thinking about something like focus on literacy, so incorporating reading logs. So reading logs are available for each month that align with the harvest of the month items to help our students track their reading, which is really fun and exciting. Also our Georgia Grown Food-Based Learning video series. So thinking about being able to incorporate one of those videos into the classroom each month and have conversations about that. We have a bingo card available as well. Conversation starters for the classroom, so thinking about taste and talk, and those cards could be utilized to prompt conversation and engage in those ways in the classroom, in the cafeteria, and even at home.
So there's a variety of ways to get started, and keeping in mind Bridgette's advice from earlier is you don't have to do it all. Pick one thing, start small, and you never know where it could end up.
I think that's my challenge for everybody too, is that if you are in the classrooms and you are doing food-based learning in the classroom, so for instance, our kindergarten has a huge standard on Johnny Appleseed, and that usually lands in September. And so if you're doing apples with kindergarten and you're doing the Johnny Appleseed lesson, make sure you have apples for lunch that day, so that when your students leave the classroom after you've taught about Johnny Appleseed, whatever variety that you've used or however you've done that, to make that connection back to the cafeteria, to make sure that whatever I've taught here, we now see here. Because as you watch those kindergartners come through the line, oh my gosh, I learned today that I love a Granny Smith apple, and so here's my choice for Granny Smith here. So just making sure that you're making that direct connection from the classroom back to that cafeteria.
Absolutely. And so who all can do food-based learning? Like who in a school environment can participate in food-based learning?
Yeah, absolutely. So our school nutrition professionals, again, being able to serve those items in the cafeteria, just like Bridgette mentioned. So being able to have those offerings available, whether it's a harvest of the month item or something that complements another lesson. Our educators, our teachers in the classroom, being able to utilize some of the food-based learning resources and incorporate food-based learning as part of their existing lessons. So we have these turnkey tools already available. So it's not that we need to create a whole new lesson about this, but really we're utilizing that food to complement some of the standards being taught. We mentioned apples earlier, so even thinking about something like fractions or trying different types of apples and being able to do comparisons and look at the data behind that. So really being able to incorporate it as part of the classroom as well. And then parents at home, I mentioned some of the taste and talk conversation cards. Like that's a great opportunity during meal times to engage and ask some of those questions and ask about what happened during the school day. I know my kids are always engaged when I'm talking about what did you have for lunch today, and I get to hear the whole story of what they had for lunch and get to learn what some of their favorites are and they got to try that day.
Fantastic. So obviously when we're talking about food, there's a lot of different foods to choose from. So if you're a teacher planning a lesson, it might be difficult to think, what food should I start with incorporated into my lesson? So how do things like Harvest of the Month help teachers make those connections to these Georgia-grown food items?
Yeah, so the Harvest of the Month program really gives you a roadmap for what items could be featured each month. They're available locally in Georgia. They could be served as part of the school meals, and they could be incorporated into classroom lessons. So we have resources to support that, whether it's the reading logs or things like books and literacy to support that. So we have resources available to support that and promote those items. So that really gives you an opportunity to focus on those nutrient-dense foods that help support our students' learning and help fuel Georgia's future.
Fantastic. So we've gotten so much from this conversation today, but I really want to give you both a chance to speak directly to any Georgia students or parents who might be listening to this. Do you have anything you want to say to them, and why should they make school meals a part of their school day or their child's school day?
Sure, I'll start. One of the things that I really want parents to understand is that when you encourage your child to eat school lunch, you're encouraging them to get the best version of that lunch that it could be. We provide the balanced meal with all of the food groups there, and so I think that's the biggest part for our families to really think about is that is the most healthy version of a lunch that they could eat. It is there, all of the pieces. We have made sure that all of those pieces are there for them. I also think for our parents, we talk about this a lot. I have a friend who just this year, her child is a sophomore in high school, and she asked me for the menu, and I was like, why do you need the menu? And she was like, because my child has decided she is going to eat school lunch, and we need to make sure. And her child has type 1 diabetes, and we had a carb count so that she could have all the tools that she needed. And I sent them the menu, and I sent it to the child. I sent it to the mom. I was like, everybody's got it. You're good. And she has come back to me, just in the last few weeks, and she was like, I can't tell you how thankful I am. I don't know why I didn't encourage her to do this way sooner, because the time in the morning for me to fix a lunch and to make sure she has, I don't have to do that in the morning. Like, it is a time saver. It is huge for them. And so that's the other piece of school lunch that we don't always talk about, is that, it allows them for parents to have an easier morning, because mornings aren't easy in the mornings getting out to school, but an easier morning, here it is. It's a cost saver. You don't have to provide that because we are providing that for you, but it's also the most balanced, healthy thing that they can eat, and you are just allowing them to get the best version of what lunch could be for them.
Yeah, and I think Bridgette really hit it. School meals are nutritious, they're delicious, and they're convenient. And I also think that we give our students an experience as part of going through the line in the cafeteria. They have an opportunity to practice their leadership and some of those soft skills. So think about walking through the line and being able to communicate and say which items you want to choose, because there's choices on the line. So they have the opportunity to choose and to speak up and to use their voice. And they also have the opportunity to practice manners and social graces. So they have those opportunities. So I think that's a good experience just for preparing our students for life.
Yes, the cafeteria is a true learning experience, and we're bringing it out into the classroom with food-based learning, so that's wonderful. So a lot of these examples that you've given, they really focus on the community, and I know you talked about at the very beginning that you love the community that you live in, and that's really clear. And you've talked about your impact on the students and on school nutrition, but what about the teacher community? What impact did this food-based learning endeavors that you've gone on have on your teachers?
So when I had a conversation with my superintendent about coming here to do this podcast and what that looked like, and I said it's really about like the food-based learning that we're doing in the classroom, and he knows that that's a big part of why I love this job and why I love it so much. It has become a part of even my evaluation at the end of the year. He always comments on that. And so I think that when I said to him, hey, like we're going to talk about food-based learning, and I was like, Mr. Wheeler, it's really about how we are collaborating with our students, and it's a direct link between the classroom and the cafeteria, and the kids are wanting to eat more because their familiarity, all of the pieces of that come together. And he looked at me and he said, that's a big piece. He said, but the bigger piece for me is the collaboration that you have with our teachers. And you have made school nutrition not just in a box. You're not just feeding kids lunch. You have made school nutrition an integral part of this education process. And he said that collaboration with our teachers and what you have built with them, because you're supporting them in the classroom and you're supporting their learning, you're supporting their students, now that comes back to the cafeteria as well, and their support there. So I think that yes, we start with our students, and that's always our focus, that's always where we go to. But I think the part from leadership down to our teachers, down to our students, and then to home, that connection that we can bring all the way, not just with our students, but with our teachers and that community, and then also our students then go home and talk about what we've learned, and parents are supporting that learning as they are changing their eating habits at home. That's a huge piece for me.
Yeah, and you're impacting, the teachers, the students, and also their parents and their community and their future, the future of your community. And who would have thought when you were planting that seed of the tops and bottoms on the tomatoes that you would have such an impact, years later. And so, Kelley, if teachers want to join a community, they want to get in with other teachers, share, collaborate ideas, what space and resources do they have to do that?
Sure. So at the Georgia Department of Education in the community, we have a food-based learning group. So that's a great place to engage, learn more about what's happening, and dig a little deeper into some of the food-based learning resources. So really encourage engagement there. And then also in the Georgia Department of Education Inspire platform and the resource repository area, that's where we really house a lot of the food-based learning resources for easy access and availability of those. So those could be utilized in our schools. I really want to highlight too the Georgia Grown video series, which has just launched, and that is such a fun platform and videos that are ready for classroom use with our K-12 students in mind. So really thinking about how things are grown, the farms and the farmers behind what items are being grown, how they're harvested, how they get to school meals, how they're prepared. So really being able to make all those connections as part of those videos. So I encourage you to check those out.
Yes, definitely. And those videos, I mean, they really are interesting too. They have those academic standards in mind, but I was watching them thinking, wow, I can't believe a lot of these stories going on with our fellow Georgians around our state. They're really, really cool. So I really want to thank both Kelley and Bridgette for joining us today on this episode of FuelCast, where they talked all about food-based learning, the impact that it's having on students, and the way that it's bringing nutrition out of the cafeteria into the classroom and into the community and these students' future. I know I'm certainly walking away from this conversation really inspired and excited about all the things going on in Georgia school nutrition. So Kelley, Bridgette, thank you both so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. It was an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us. We appreciate you tuning in.
Want to learn more about school meals in Georgia? Here are 4 easy ways to stay in the know. Learn what's on the menu in your student's school. Follow your local school nutrition team on their social media accounts. Go eat a meal with your student in their school cafeteria. And as always, connect with us, the Georgia Department of Education School Nutrition Division, to know what's going on statewide. You can connect with us via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn with the hashtag FuelingGA. You can also email us at fuelingga@GaDOE.org. Until next time, the Georgia Department of Education School Nutrition Division is fueling Georgia's future with excellence, one quality school meal at a time.
Thanks for joining us on FuelCast Georgia. Want more of Georgia School Nutrition? Connect with us on social media using hashtag FuelingGA and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're here every month with new engaging guests and inspiring stories. Have questions or ideas for future topics? Email us at fuelingga@gadoe.org. Until next time, the Georgia Department of Education School Nutrition Division is fueling Georgia's future with excellence, one school meal at a time.